No, no, I know, you're real sweet. Good morning, everyone. So I'm not one to drink a lot of coffee, during the summer anyway. And in winter, I don't really drink a whole lot either because I like my coffee like I like my sweet tea. Sweet. So that's the reason I don't drink a whole lot of it. But today is a big day. The spruces are getting cut down. It was a really big decision to make, but the relief I felt when I sent that final email making the decision to, yes, go ahead and cut those down was immense, because it immediately allowed me the freedom to start dreaming about what I'm going to put in those spaces. And I've already thought about moving some stuff around. The design's going to be a little different. I'm going to be moving those little green giants, I think, the ball-shaped arborvitae out front, maybe to around the trees that I'm going to put in the space. I'm still thinking about what will go in those areas. Y'all had some really good recommendations. I had someone from a garden center come out yesterday from Grandma's Gardens, Jerry, really nice man, and he recommended 2 trees, and I'm going to think on it for a while. But one of them I'm definitely probably going to add, and that is a Bracken's brown southern magnolia. And I'll put a picture on the screen. As someone from Alabama, I love magnolias. They're really beautiful trees. They can get really massive. But Bracken's brown is a variety that is more fastigiate. Now it can get kind of wide, but it's an evergreen and it can be controlled really easily. It's outside growth. So the Bracken's brown magnolia is probably going to replace the blue spruce. And the other tree he recommended for the other side is a first blush cherry. It is a double cherry tree. I haven't had the best experience with cherry trees. There was one that was dividing my property line with my neighbor when we moved in that I removed several years ago because it was dead. It was dying out from the bottom, it had rotted. And then I replaced that cherry with a Yoshino cherry, and that one did not make it either. It lost a lot of its limbs, and so I replaced it with the Crimson Sunset maple that's out there now. But it's by 𝗂𝗓𝗓𝗏, which I've showed you. I have the Crimson Sunset. It's actually from them. They're a really good tree breeder, and I think I might give that one a try. But I'm still up, since I got to wait, mostly all winter, on what I can put in those spaces. So it most definitely froze last night, and it wasn't supposed to. At least we had a very hard frost. So you can see behind me on the ground here how wide it is. And let's look at the ground right quick, because it almost feels very wintry. Isn't that lovely? There's the ice or frost on top of the shed. Well, anyway, because this is the first, we've had a frost and we've had a freeze, but it's been very patchy in areas of the garden. So this one probably did do the dahlias in. They're much more brown than they were yesterday. And I left my hoses and stuff out because I've been watering, because we haven't had much rain. We did get a really good day of rain. I guess it was yesterday night, and really good. It rained most of the night, it feels like, which isn't great because the trees are being removed today and the ground's kind of wet, so it might mess up the lawn a little bit. But we desperately needed it going into winter. It's been really dry. So this weekend, my plan would be to come out here and clean out my dahlias and do the dahlia video I've been wanting to show you on how I'm going to winter these over in my raised beds in Zone 6. As I've mentioned in previous videos, this is an experiment. I've never done it before, but the process that I'm going to be using I think will be successful, but we'll just have to see next year around May when they start emerging from the ground, if they survived. And a lot of this, of course, depends on whether I redo my vegetable garden next year or not. If I redo my vegetable garden, that's something I'll probably get started on earlier, March or April, and I'll be digging those and moving them out temporarily while I get the new beds in, and then replanting them in those beds until we have our final last frost. But one thing I wanted to mention about the Bracken's brown southern magnolia, because I was very hesitant. You don't see a lot of magnolias up here. This is a very specific variety that tends to be hardy up here. I was concerned as whether it would be evergreen or not. Jerry from Grandma's Garden said they've been selling them at least 10 years, and in the 10 years that they've been selling them, he hasn't seen them lose their leaves. Now, there's always a possibility that we'll have a really weird, super cold winter, and in those cases, the leaves might fall off, but they would releaf in the following spring. And so I think that's a really good choice for that spot. Magnolias are really lovely trees. My concern was that losing its leaves is they are very leathery, which means they're great for like projects and stuff. If you want to do any crafting, a lot of people will buy magnolia leaves, but to have a smaller one on your property that you can do things with and create fall decorations and that type thing is really valuable. And I don't know if I'll do that or not, but I do love the magnolias because they remind me of home. And so I'm definitely going to be putting that one there. The other side I'm not really sure about yet, but I do like the idea of the first blush cherry. So I just wanted to come out and show you the frosty morning. We're still waiting for the tree people to get here. I'm not sure what time they will be getting here today. So it's kind of going to be a wait and see, and then I'm going to try and do a time lapse of the removal because I've never seen trees removed this big in person. And it'll just be interesting to watch, especially the stump grinding process, because I've never seen a stump being ground either. So that'll be exciting, I guess, and an exciting opportunity to see what it looks like when the trees are gone and allow me some planning for next year. It kind of makes me wish right now that I had ordered more bulbs for out front because I didn't have a whole lot of place to put bulbs out front. But I think I'm going to use this extra space and opportunity as an area to maybe try more annuals in the ground next year, because it'll be a good amount of unused space, and I'm going to add some more lower evergreens, particularly around whatever goes on the other side where the green spruce is, if it's not evergreen, and that way there'll be some winter interest on that side as well. But I have lots of ideas and things flowing already. Just the sending the email that yes, I wanted these removed was so liberating, because I had dreaded this for a couple years. I mentioned earlier this year that they would eventually have to come out, and just knowing now that they're coming out today has been like kind of like very exciting, which don't get that excited too often. I'm not a very excitable person, but things like this and big changes that allow me to dream, since the garden is pretty full now and I can pick some beautiful specimens to go in those locations, is, you know, great into the week. So I'll pick you guys up when they arrive. They're all done. Are you ready to see it? It's quite a change. I don't feel like I'm as shocked as much as I expected it to. It actually looks really good now that they're gone. And it's so much easier to visualize the space, so I know I'm going to have to make changes to some things I put in the ground this year. They did have to pull out a few plants, particularly the tiny wee white hydrangeas that were around one of the trees. I'm going to rebury those where they were at, but those may be things that I remove next year and give away, simply because I haven't loved how they performed in that area. They might do better now that they get a little more sun. But I think it is going to create an opportunity to do some much different things up here. So let's take a look right quick. And here we are. This is where the green spruce was. It's all gone. You can see what kind of area is left over here. And I'll do some aerial views of the stump grinding and removal process, but you can see where they had to remove some of these wee whites right here so they could get the stump grinder in here. It completely opened up this side of the house, so definitely need some structure back in here. Behind me here is a Bradford pear, which I do not love, but it's one of the biggest trees on our property, and I know it will come out in probably a few years. But until that time, I've left it, and then in the future we'll grind that stump out too. And so we'll let whatever I'd put in here grow up a little bit. And then when it starts competing with the canopy of the Bradford pear here, we'll have the Bradford removed, because Bradfords are trash trees. I do not really want one on my property, but it's going to prolong its life a little bit until something grows up in this space. Now, I had Harrison's Pro Tree do this work. They are a company between Cincinnati and Dayton locally, and the reason I use them is because I have tried to extend this Bradford pear's life as much as I can and prevent it from splitting. Bradfords are really known for like catching gusts of wind and splitting because the canopy gets really thick. So about 3 years ago, I hired them to clean it up, and they cleaned it up again today. Because my neighbors across the street split last year. And so they do a really clean, thorough job, and that's the reason I hired them again for this project. Last time they came in, you couldn't even tell that they were here, despite there being a bed underneath it with plants. So they clean up all the little sticks, break everything up. You wouldn't even know they were here. Same thing here. You can see the stumps ground. There's really no debris left over, and the tree's gone. Now this area is probably the most different, and it looks really odd actually. So this is where I was thinking about putting the magnolia at, the Bracken's Brown Beauty. So I think it will look really nice right here where the spruce was. But the thing about removal of trees is I could come in and there's still probably time to put trees in the ground right now. Also gonna let a lot more sun in this way, but as these stumps die off, the ground will settle some, and so the difficulty with planting a tree just where you removed a tree, even if the stump was ground, was if that tree settles, it may end up lower than it needs to be after a year or so. So letting it sit over winter will be the perfect time for what's in there to die down a little bit and break down, and then planting something back in its place shouldn't be a problem because I ground this pretty good down in the ground, maybe 12 inches or so. So the soil will be really fluffy and the perfect spot for a tree next year. Now in this space, there's not going to be a whole lot that I have to remove. There's some ferns down here. These are crested surf by Proven Winners. So those will have to be moved to a more shady area, and I might go ahead and attempt that process this fall just so I can get them settled in over winter. I'll probably move them over here somewhere, or maybe in the back somewhere. I'm not sure yet. There's also some hosta in here that will have to be moved. Most of them were cut down and now they're hard to see, so I will probably wait to move those until spring. That won't be a problem, but placing some nice round evergreens right here around this Bracken Brown Beauty Magnolia, I think will be very nice for this spot. Because this area has changed so much and now I have more room here, I'm actually considering moving this container right here because it's a lot of center structure right there. And I'll probably remove this rose, but these are things I'm going to wait for till next year. So not going to happen this year, but I'm thinking about moving this to the other side over here, and I'll take you and show you right quick. So this is a previously pretty shady area, but what I'm thinking about, depending on what survives in my transplant, I transplanted a rose standard to the south side where I was just standing. This is a blue chiffon hibiscus on standard, and it does bloom pretty good here, but it probably doesn't get as much sun as it likes. So these are the little giant arborvitae that I will probably be moving elsewhere. This is all hosta that will probably get reworked next year. And these might get moved to balls around this area or the other side, since I already have really good structure. I probably am not going to attempt that this fall. That'll be something I do in the spring. It's getting a little late to move stuff that big, I think, with our weather the way it is. But in the place where this blue chiffon hibiscus standard is where I'm considering putting that concrete container over there. A few years ago when I got that container, I considered putting it here, but I already had that space planted, and those are things that are really difficult to move, so it's not something that I've attempted moving yet, but I think that will be a nice option right there. I can plant it with some Coleus. Now that we have a little more sun getting to that area, I just think it'll be a good option there and provide some upright concrete beauty in front of the windows there without having something that's going to grow up and block the windows. So I'm going to end this video here, and I'm going to provide some video footage of the removal of these trees. It happened really quickly, probably less than an hour they were here, right around an hour exactly. Really quick cleanup and really great job they did. So I'm excited about dreaming for next year. I will probably come out here and take a tape measure and measure the space just so I can lay out some things over winter. Because when you remove something that big, it is big, but the bed spaces are never as big as you think they are. So I need actual dimensions to know what can fit in that space good. So check out the video that comes after this. And thank you guys for following along. Remember, in a world full of hate, be a light. Take care, everyone. Bye.